So Prince William finally said the quiet part out loud. Music. And the palace is now dealing with the fallout in real time. The story going around is that Queen Camilla was visibly in tears after William made a public statement defending Diana's legacy. And the reason he did it now after all this time is way more calculated than anyone is letting on. We're not talking about a random emotional outburst. This was a deliberate move, and it apparently started with a document that was never supposed to see the light of day. Before we get into it, if you like stories that go deeper than the basic headlines, hit subscribe to Crown Watch. We're covering the stuff that doesn't make the front page. It takes 2 seconds, and it helps us keep doing this. So, here's where it gets weird. The palace is a machine built on silence. Music. They don't do public emotional breakdowns. They do carefully worded statements that say nothing. But according to insiders, when the news of William's statement reached Camilla, she didn't do the stiff upper lip thing. She sat there completely still, and then the tears just came. Not the dramatic, performative kind, the quiet kind. The kind that happens when someone realizes that no matter how many years they've put in, the past isn't going to let them go. And that's the part that should make you pause, because Camilla has spent 2 decades learning how to absorb public humiliation without flinching. She's been booed. She's been compared to Diana in the cruelest possible ways. And she's never once broken in front of anyone. So if she's crying now, it's not because William said something mean. Music. It's because he said something true and she knew it was true. And so did everyone else in that room. The statement itself wasn't impulsive. William doesn't do impulsive. He's the guy who sits on decisions for months, weighs every word, and then delivers it with that calm, almost unnerving steadiness. Music. People who know him say that when he gets really quiet, that's when you should worry. And apparently, he'd been really quiet for weeks. To truly grasp the seismic impact of what just went down, you have to understand the decades-long pressure cooker that exists within the high walls of Buckingham Palace. This isn't just about a stepmother and a stepson having a disagreement over Sunday lunch. This is about a generational war for the heart, soul, and historical narrative of the British monarchy. For over 20 years, the royal family has operated under a very specific, unwritten protocol regarding Princess Diana. The strategy, masterminded by senior palace strategists and quietly endorsed by the higher-ups, was simple. Let time do what scandal couldn't. The goal was to slowly, methodically, and almost imperceptibly fade Diana's memory into the background of royal history. She was to be remembered as a tragic figure of the 90s, a chapter that was officially closed, while Queen Camilla was elevated as the steadfast, dutiful, and indispensable matriarch of the modern era. Camilla's transformation from the most hated woman in Britain to the anointed queen consort was nothing short of a public relations miracle. It required absolute discipline, total silence, and a complete suppression of any public reminders of the woman she replaced. For years, Prince William and Prince Harry went along with the institutional machinery. They were young, grieving, and thrust into an overwhelming world of duty. They made peace, or at least a public display of peace, with their father's second wife. We all saw the photographs, the awkward family portraits, the polite smiles at public engagements, the carefully choreographed joint appearances. The public was led to believe that the hatchet had been buried deep underground. But beneath that polished veneer, the emotional scars had never healed. They were merely covered up by royal protocol. Those who have walked the long, cold corridors of the palace know that the tension between Prince William and Queen Camilla was never truly resolved. It was a frozen conflict, held together only by the formidable presence of the late Queen Elizabeth II. Her late Majesty was the anchor that kept the peace. She insisted on unity, demands that duty come before personal grievances, and ensured that everyone played their assigned roles without step-offs. However, when Queen Elizabeth passed away and King Charles ascended the throne, the tectonic plates shifted overnight. Queen Camilla was no longer just Charles's wife. She was crowned queen. Her influence within the institution skyrocketed. Her office began taking control over royal charities, historical archives, and public relations strategies. And with that power came a subtle, aggressive push to cement her legacy, often at the direct expense of Princess Diana's lingering shadow. Palace insiders have quietly noted for months that tension was reaching a boiling point. Staff members reported cold shoulders in the hallways, brief and chilly interactions during state dinners, and an atmosphere so heavy you could cut it with a knife. William watched as his mother's patronages were quietly reassigned, her preferred charities pushed to the periphery, and her historical significance systematically rephrased in official publications. For a long time, William chose the path of restraint. He was the Prince of Wales, the heir apparent, trained from birth to protect the crown at all costs. But those close to him knew that every time his mother's memory was minimized, a piece of his institutional loyalty fractured. He was carrying a double burden: being the dutiful heir to his father's reign, and being the loving son of a mother whose voice was silenced far too early. The stage was set for an inevitable, catastrophic explosion. It wasn't a matter of if this fragile truce would break, but when and how. The palace machinery believed they had successfully contained the Prince of Wales, assuming his commitment to the monarchy would always force him to stay silent. They severely miscalculated. They forgot that William isn't just a future king. He is Diana's son. And as the quiet resentment reached its absolute limit, all it took was one single, bureaucratic push to ignite a firestorm that now threatens to consume the entire royal household. The spark that set off this royal inferno wasn't a screaming match or a public brawl. It happened in the quietest, most unassuming way possible, inside Prince William's private study at Kensington Palace. It was a Tuesday morning when a routine briefing binder landed on his desk. Amongst the mundane schedules, budget allocations, and travel itineraries was a confidential document marked for internal institutional review only. It was a strategic policy paper titled Legacy Communications Management, Long-Term Protocols. On the surface, it sounded like standard corporate jargon, the kind of dry paperwork generated by palace committees every single day. But as William began to read through the pages, his blood ran cold. The document outlined a comprehensive, multi-year plan to systematically reduce the public footprint of Princess Diana. It contained specific recommendations to gradually phase out state-sponsored memorial events, restrict access to her historical archives, and reframe her charitable legacy under generic royal trusts. The report explicitly referred to Diana's enduring global popularity as a source of historical friction, an ongoing public relations hurdle that directly compromised the authority and public acceptance of Queen Camilla. The language was clinical, cold, and calculated. It treated the beloved Princess of Wales not as a human being, a mother, or an icon of compassion, but as an institutional liability that needed to be managed, contained, and ultimately erased from the active narrative. William sat at his desk in absolute, heavy silence. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't slam the folder shut. He just put the document face down on the polished mahogany and stared out the window for what staff members described as an agonizing 20 minutes. The silence was deafening. Then came the first catastrophic twist. William instructed his private secretary to run an immediate, off-the-record audit to find out who had authorized this document. He expected it to be the work of overzealous, out-of-touch palace bureaucrats trying to curry favor with the new reign. But the truth was infinitely worse. A leaked internal email thread, later uncovered by trusted royal correspondents, revealed a private consultation held months prior. The consultation wasn't initiated by an anonymous committee. It was requested directly by Queen Camilla's private legal team and her senior advisory staff. The legal brief asked one horrifyingly specific question. At what point does the continued public institutional presence of Diana, Princess of Wales, legally and reputationally infringe upon the established authority of the current queen consort? The fingerprints weren't just on the document. The entire operation had been spearheaded by Camilla's inner circle. They were actively using institutional legal channels to quietly sideline a dead woman's memory so that Camilla wouldn't have to live in her shadow any longer. The betrayal was total. It was absolute. And for Prince William, it was the ultimate line crossed. Without informing King Charles, without consulting the Royal Communications Secretariat, and without giving any warning to Buckingham Palace, William took immediate, nuclear action. He didn't file an internal complaint. He didn't request a peaceful family mediation. Instead, during a scheduled public address for a youth mental health initiative, an event surrounded by dozens of international news cameras, William completely ditched his prepared, pre-approved speech. Standing at the podium, looking directly into the lenses of the world's media, William delivered a devastating, unscripted defense of his mother. His voice was steady, dropping like iron. My mother's legacy is not a corporate brand to be managed, minimized, or contained by institutional fears. Her courage, her love, and her presence belong to the world, to her children, and to history. Anyone who thinks they can quietly rewrite that narrative severely underestimates the power of her memory, and the length to which I will go to protect it. The room went dead silent. The press corps gasped. Within seconds, those words were transmitted across the globe. The shockwave tore through Buckingham Palace instantly. When the news reached Queen Camilla in her private quarters, the reaction was immediate and chaotic. Leaked messages from palace aides describe a scene of utter panic. Camilla was reportedly completely shattered. The iron composure she had maintained for 25 years cracked wide open. She sat frozen as the broadcast replayed, and then, in front of high-ranking staff members, she burst into quiet, unstoppable tears. It wasn't just anger. It was the raw, terrifying realization that her absolute worst nightmare had just come true. The heir to the throne had publicly declared war on her household, and he had done it in front of millions of people. If Buckingham Palace thought William's speech was the climax of the crisis, they were dead wrong. It was merely the opening salvo in what quickly transformed into a full-scale institutional meltdown. Within hours of William's explosive speech, the global news ecosystem caught fire. The hashtag I Stand With William began trending at #1 worldwide on X, formerly Twitter, racking up over 3 million tweets in under 6 hours. News networks abandoned their scheduled programming to broadcast emergency royal bulletins. Mainstream media anchors were visibly stunned, openly discussing the sudden, unprecedented breach between the Prince of Wales and the Queen Consort. But behind the scenes, the escalation was taking a far more dangerous turn. King Charles was reportedly thrust into a state of absolute panic. Aides described the king as completely paralyzed, caught in an agonizing conflict between his loyalty to his wife and his love for his son. Charles convened an emergency, late-night crisis meeting at Clarence House. He demanded that William attend immediately to issue a clarifying, retracting statement to cool down the media frenzy. William's response? A cold, definitive refusal. In a leaked phone transcript between senior palace aides, William allegedly told his father's office, "I will not issue a single word of apology. If the palace wants to issue a statement, they can explain to the public why my mother's name was on a legal hit list." That was when the second, even more terrifying twist was dropped like a megaton bomb inside the royal household. As the legal teams frantically scrambled to review all documentation surrounding the legacy management project, an independent audit revealed something truly astonishing. The push to minimize Diana's legacy wasn't just about public relations or charity patronages. It was tied directly to a secret, highly sensitive financial and estate restructuring proposal. It emerged that senior figures within the royal estate management had been quietly planning to reallocate historical assets, personal jewelry collections, and iconic memorial properties associated with Diana into a newly formed crown trust, a trust that would ultimately fall under the administrative control of Queen Camilla's designated patronage committee. In essence, they weren't just trying to erase Diana from the history books. They were attempting to legally and financially strip her estate of its distinct identity, merging it into the institution where Camilla held sovereign influence. When William discovered this financial maneuver, the atmosphere inside Kensington Palace shifted from outrage to pure, calculated hostility. William didn't just stand his ground. He doubled down. He immediately ordered his private legal counsel to slap a formal freeze on any transfer of Diana's historic assets, effectively filing an institutional injunction against his own father's administration. The public reaction was vicious. Social media users began digging up old videos of Diana's iconic 1995 interview, contrasting her words with the current palace maneuvering. Popular internet commentators and high-profile celebrities began weighing in. Hollywood A-listers, prominent journalists, and global political figures began publicly tweeting their support for William. One viral Twitter thread, posted by a former royal biographer, detailed the exact timeline of Camilla's legal inquiries, receiving over 500,000 retweets in a single afternoon. The public sentiment was overwhelmingly toxic toward Camilla. Comment sections on official royal social media pages were flooded with black heart emojis, quotes from Princess Diana, and brutal criticisms of the Queen Consort. Inside the palace, the atmosphere was described as apocalyptic. Official royal engagements for Camilla were abruptly cancelled or scaled back, with aides citing diary conflicts, but everyone knew the real reason. The palace could not risk putting Camilla in front of public crowds who were now actively chanting Diana's name outside the gates of Kensington and Buckingham Palace. Camilla was effectively forced into hiding within her own residence. She was completely isolated, terrified of the public backlash, and deeply wounded by the brutal realization that despite holding the crown, the ghost of Princess Diana, carried fiercely by her son, still held total power over the public's heart. The global fallout was unprecedented, creating a cultural divide not seen since the dark days of late 1997. The world was instantly sliced into two fiercely opposing camps, unleashing a media war that completely dominated global headlines, talk shows, and digital platforms. On social media, Gen Z and millennials overwhelmingly rallied behind Prince William. TikTok was flooded with millions of edit videos featuring clips of Diana alongside William's dramatic speech, set to tragic, cinematic music. The narrative online was simple, direct, and emotionally explosive. A devoted son was standing up against a cold, manipulative system to protect his late mother's honor. William did what any loving son would do. One viral TikTok comment with over 200,000 likes read, "They killed her spirit while she was alive, and now they want to kill her memory while she's dead." William said, "Not on my watch." However, the reaction among veteran royal commentators, traditionalists, and older generations was far more fractured and cautious. Major conservative news outlets published scathing opinion pieces accusing William of endangering the stability of the constitutional monarchy. Prominent royal analysts appeared on television networks arguing that William had committed an unforgivable breach of royal protocol by airing family grievances in the public domain. "The Prince of Wales has crossed a dangerous line," stated one high-profile commentator during a live news broadcast. "The monarchy survives on unity and quiet diplomacy." By publicly attacking the institution and casting a shadow over Queen Camilla, William has brought the crown into a dangerous constitutional crisis. This is no longer just family grief. This is a direct threat to the reign of King Charles III. The industry backlash was swift and severe. Major television networks launched primetime special reports analyzing the royal civil war. Foreign press outlets in America, Australia, and across Europe ran front-page headlines declaring, "The crown in crisis," and "Willem declares war on Queen Camilla." Celebrities and public figures couldn't resist joining the fray. High-profile talk show hosts devoted entire opening monologues to the scandal, poking fun at the palace's desperate attempt to contain the narrative while praising William's fierce loyalty to his mother. International pop stars and influencers began posting tributes to Princess Diana on their Instagram stories, amplifying the message to hundreds of millions of young followers who had never even been alive when Diana was prince. Inside the royal institutional apparatus, senior staff members were resigning in protest or leaking information to protect their own reputations. A major division erupted between the communications staff at Kensington Palace, William's team, and Buckingham Palace, Charles and Camilla's team. The two offices completely stopped sharing operational calendars, resulting in chaotic scheduling overlaps and cold, professional silence between press secretaries. Fake press releases, forged internal memos, and wild internet rumors began circulating at breakneck speed, adding fuel to the already blazing fire. Internet sleuths began analyzing every single piece of historical footage, every royal photograph, and every public statement made over the last decade, searching for hidden clues of the brewing feud. The public was utterly captivated. News ratings soared to historic highs. Comment sections became war zones between traditional monarchists defending Camilla's right to serve quietly and passionate Diana loyalists demanding that Camilla step down from her public duties altogether. The royal brand was taking a massive, unprecedented beating. The carefully constructed narrative of a modern, harmonious, and streamlined monarchy had been completely obliterated in a matter of days. And right at the center of this storm stood a deeply divided family, incapable of fixing the damage because the hurt was simply too deep, too old, and far too personal. Just when the world thought the situation couldn't possibly get any more dramatic, a final, earth-shattering revelation emerged from the deepest shadows of the palace. One that changes the entire trajectory of the British monarchy forever. Late last night, a high-level source within the Duchy of Lancaster leaked information regarding a secret, private meeting that took place in the absolute dead of night at Windsor Castle. There were no aides present, no secretaries, no recording devices, just three people: King Charles, Prince William, and Queen Camilla. The tension in that room was described as suffocating. King Charles, desperate to save his reigning legacy and protect his wife, allegedly made a desperate plea to William, begging him to issue a joint statement of family reconciliation to stop the public bleed. Charles warned William that continuing this public war would permanently destroy public trust in the crown, potentially imperiling William's own future as king. It was at that exact moment that Prince William dropped the ultimate nuclear bombshell. William didn't flinch. He didn't yield. Instead, he reached into his jacket, pulled out a thick, leather-bound journal, and placed it directly on the table between King Charles and Queen Camilla. It was Princess Diana's lost personal diary, a private, unpublished handwritten journal from the final months of her life, containing explosive, eyewitness entries, details about her precise experiences within the palace, specific names of individuals who worked to undermine her, and personal notes written directly to her sons regarding how they should navigate the institution if she was no longer around. William looked his father and stepmother dead in the eye and delivered a chilling, ultimate ultimatum. If one more attempt is made to minimize my mother's name, if one more legal document is drafted to touch her estate, or if any retaliation is taken against my staff, I will not just defend her publicly. I will publish every single page of this journal to the world. The room went completely, terrifyingly silent. Queen Camilla reportedly went pale as a sheet, unable to speak a single word. King Charles was left completely stunned, realizing in that horrifying second that his son was holding a weapon capable of completely dismantling the royal family's public standing forever. William picked up the journal, stood up, and walked out of Windsor Castle without saying another word. The message was crystal clear. William is no longer just playing defense. He has armed himself with his mother's final, unfiltered truth, and he is fully prepared to press the detonation button if the palace pushes him 1 millimeter further. As we film this video right now, Buckingham Palace is in absolute lockdown. Emergency legal meetings are being held behind closed doors. The atmosphere is thick with fear, uncertainty, and looming catastrophe. The drama is far, far from over. In fact, this is just the beginning of a historic showdown that could change the fate of the throne forever. Insiders are hinting that William is currently preparing a brand new, independent charitable foundation strictly dedicated to Diana's memory, entirely separate from the crown's oversight, a move that would permanently divide royal power. What will Charles do next? Will Camilla be forced to withdraw from public life altogether to save the monarchy? Or is Buckingham Palace preparing a secret counterstrike that could blow this war wide open? This is without a doubt the most dangerous crisis the royal family has faced in modern history, and the implications are absolutely massive. Now I want to hear from you. Whose side are you on in this intense royal war? Do you think Prince William was 100% right to publicly call out the palace and stand up for Princess Diana's memory? Or do you feel he went too far and put the future of the monarchy at risk? And what do you think Queen Camilla should do now? Step back or fight back? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. I read every single comment, and I want to see a real debate in the section today. If you found this breakdown shocking and intense, make sure to smash that like button right now. It really helps the channel survive and allows us to keep bringing you these deep, unfiltered stories that the mainstream media is too afraid to touch. And most importantly, hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications for Crown Watch right now. We are monitoring this situation 24/7, and we have another massive, explosive update dropping very soon regarding those secret diary entries and the palace's next move. You do not want to miss what's coming next. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned, and I will see you in the very next video.